Ever wonder why modern music feels safe? Like every sound is just menu click away, perfectly in tune and completely soulless. The secret to the most famous keyboard sound of the 1970s wasn't a preset, it was a nightmare. In 1974, moving Rick Wakeman from one city to the next didn't just take a van, it took a dedicated semi-track. Not for the band's backline, for one man's instruments. Inside it lived a wall of separate temperamental machines, and the only thing connecting them was a 24-year-old with a cape, a hangover, and two hands moving faster than the technology around them.
Synthesizers that musicians could use, because he loved musicians and he wanted to see what they would do with it. And Keith Emerson, he got hold of one, I got hold of one, but they were big modular things.
Inside the truck sat a Hammond C3 organ that weighed as much as a refrigerator. Two Mellotrons, wooden cabinets full of magnetic tape that went out of tune if the room got slightly warm, a grand piano, two Minimoog synthesizers that could each make exactly one sound at a time and forgot that sound the moment you touched the knob, an RMI electric piano, a harpsichord, spare tape racks, spare everything, because on any given night at least one of these machines was going to try to die on stage.
The instruments are much more reliable. Everything's more reliable when you work, and also to some extent we know what we're doing. Back then you didn't. It was sort of, well, I wonder if this is going to work. We were arriving at venues nobody had played before.
There was no save button anywhere in that track. No patch memory, no MIDI, because MIDI wouldn't exist for another 9 years. If Wakeman wanted a different sound, he couldn't press anything. He had to physically walk to a different instrument. You see, back then a sound was not a setting. A sound was a physical machine. The organ lived inside 91 spinning metal tone wheels. The strings lived on strips of magnetic tape. The synthesizer lead lived in the physical positions of 24 knobs, and only there. If your arrangement needed 6 sounds, you owned 6 machines, and they had to be arranged around your body so your hands could reach all of them within a bar of music. Writing a keyboard part meant blocking out stage movement, like a director. Every sound change in the set was choreography, fixed to the beat. Hundreds of moves a night.
And there was that smell of sort of acrid electric burning. And I'm going around all the instruments. I had about 20 instruments at the time, nothing, no midis and things back in the 70s.
Miss one and the string curtain simply fails to appear in front of 10,000 people in a band whose whole identity was precision. Wakeman could run that system for one reason. Before, yes, he was a session man. By his own count, around 2,000 sessions. We are recording a piece. We've got a Mellotron. No one can keep it in tune. Can you get up here quick? In 1969, producer Tony Visconti called him about the David Bowie track because, in his words, nobody could keep the effing Mellotron in tune. Nobody could, because the Mellotron is barely an instrument. Under each key sits a strip of tape holding a real recording of real musicians sustaining that one note. A sampler built out of tape and springs 20 years before sampling. Each note lasts 8 seconds. Then the tape runs out. Play too many keys and the motor drags, and everything sags back together. Wakeman's fix: never more than 2 notes at once, and ride the pitch knob continuously with his spare fingers, bending the machine back into tune in real time. Bowie greeted him at a session with a line he's repeated for 50 years. Gus and Tony say, "For you, this is a piece of cake. Ever played a piece of cake before?" The song was Space Oddity. That trick was still the operating rule on Yes stages years later. The great Mellotron curtains on And You and I are voiced 2 notes at a time, with a private 8-second countdown running on every finger. The rest of the wall had its own personalities. The Hammond was the reliable one. It's pitch-locked to the mains electricity. It couldn't drift, so everything else got tuned against it. The price? 400 pounds of church furniture up the loading dock every day. I suddenly had an instrument that could give the guitar a run for its money. The Minimoog was the opposite. A glorious new voice that could stand toe-to-toe with Steve Howe's guitar, 1 note at a time, with no memory of any kind. The sound was the knob positions, and creating tomorrow's sound destroyed tonight's. Wakeman's solution is the whole logic of the wall in miniature. He bought more Minimoogs, 1 per sound, each warmed up, tuned and parked with its knobs already set. The patch change, that invisible tap you make today, existed physically as duplicate hardware. Walking was the program change, and the arrangements were scored for exactly this orchestra. Yes was a band of brilliant edges, Squire's growling treble bass, Howe's darting lines, Bruford's thick crack, with a hole in the middle and no sustain anywhere. The wall filled the hole. Mellotron pouring in the one thing nobody else could produce, Hammond gluing the register a rhythm guitarist would have owned, the RMI's glassy chime cutting through where a real piano would feed back and drown. 1 machine, 1 voice, 1 job.
This was sort of like the Rolls Royce of the keyboards at the time. Very few bands took them out because they're very heavy. But this has been a major part of my rig for, oh crikey, 30 years nearly.
Because every extra color cost weight, money and reach. Every voice had to earn its place. The wall was an editor. Its weight wrote half the music. But let's be honest, it also looked absurd. The reviewer said that with all the keyboards and pedals I was using, I looked like a giant comical spider, with arms and legs flailing everywhere. An American reviewer in 1971 wrote that Wakeman on stage looked like a giant comical spider, arms and legs flailing across the machines. Wakeman agreed. A cape. It would hide all movement and could even look quite elegant. The fix came at a festival in Hartford, Connecticut. The DJ introducing the bands wore a cape, and Wakeman realized a cape hides everything. Cover the contortions and flailing spider becomes a wizard standing serenely inside the wall of machines. He bought it off the man's back for $200 in his pocket.
And somewhere I've still got a review from that concert where the journalist said Wakeman was not his usual flamboyant self. Which I thought just about...
So you were there with your cape on it?
I had my cape and bits on the piano and bits where it was just pointless because it couldn't work. I just rattled a tambourine for the...
The most famous costume in progressive rock exists to hide the physical labor of operating 10 keyboards without software. Then the labor stopped feeling worth it. On the Tales from Topographic Oceans tour, Wakeman, who called the album a padded bra, good-looking cover, not much underneath, found himself standing inside 40,000 pounds of machinery with long stretches of nothing to play. There are some good moments, but it's like wading through a cesspool to get to the water lily.
entirely in the concept of topographic oceans and stuff?
No, I must admit, Toby's graphic go-kart, as I used to lovingly call it, it was... I used to close my eyes a lot because most people eat after a show. I used to have violent curries beforehand.
You had them during, I remember.
I did, that's true, but that was when I had the famous boycott curry.
At Manchester Free Trade Hall, after he'd mentioned craving a curry, his keyboard tech delivered a full Indian takeaway to the stage mid-performance. Vindaloo, pilau rice, papadums. And Wakeman ate it on top of the Hammond. It plays as comedy. It was a resignation letter written in Vindaloo. He quit Yes in June 1974 and made the wall bigger. That January, he'd already premiered Journey to the Center of the Earth at the Royal Festival Hall. The wall plus the actual London Symphony Orchestra, both playing the same score, the Mellotron holding string chords in front of 60 real string players. The live album went to #1. That July, after a huge Crystal Palace show, having barely slept for 5 days, Rick Wakeman had a heart attack. He was 25. Recovering in hospital, forbidden from everything, he got hold of manuscript paper and started writing King Arthur from the bed, the album he staged the next year at Wembley, on ice, with skating nights, losing a fortune and regretting nothing. He even tried to fix the machines himself. In 1974, an inventor named David Bowie showed him car 8-track players wired to an old piano keyboard, and Wakeman saw it instantly. 8-track tapes are loops. Loops don't run out. The Mellotron's 8-second death sentence lifted. He poured his own fortune into manufacturing the Mellotron. Over 1,000 orders came in, only a handful were ever built, and by then the first polyphonic synthesizers had made it obsolete. The venture nearly bankrupted him. He wasn't wrong about the disease, he was wrong about which future would arrive first. The future arrived in January 1983, when two rival synthesizers were connected by a cheap cable speaking a new language called MIDI.
Exactly as the original tapes were. That's where they've been really clever. So you get, it must have cost them a fortune to do it, but it's worth it.
One of its messages is called program change. The walk from the Hammond to the Mellotron compressed into a single byte. Within a few years, one keyboard under one pair of hands could hold more sounds than every track Yes ever loaded, recall any of them instantly and never drift. Every problem in this video was solved, but listen to what else dissolved. The Mellotron's shimmer was 35 tapes disagreeing about pitch. The fatness of two Minimoogs doubling a line was two circuits failing to perfectly agree. The urgency in a live Yes recording is the sound of a system running without a safety net. Perfect machines don't produce those artifacts, which is why entire industries now sell software that re-injects tape wobble and analog drift into digital rigs. We solved the struggle, missed it, and started buying it back.
It actually, they've sampled all the faults of the original one. Okay. I know it might sound a bit daft, so the strings aren't even. Some are different, and that's what makes the sound. Yeah. What they've done, they've sampled every note off of the thing, but hundreds of samples on every note.
A specific night in 1973, that Mellotron at that temperature, those Minimoog circuits drifting, that man making every change by hand, was a configuration of matter that occurred once. Recordings from inside it and photographs of something unrepeatable. A preset, by definition, is repeatable. Whatever we lost, it's somewhere in that sentence. Thank you for watching.